rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom. There shall be famines and pestilences and earthquakes, and this gospel of the kingdom shall be preached in all the world, and then shall the end come.
Tell us, when will these things be? And what will be the sign of your coming and of the end of the age?
Here's today's prophecy update. The world's largest land-based moving structure, weighing 72 million pounds, was slid into place 2 days ago. This unprecedented structure was built to solve one of the greatest prophetic fulfillments of all time. Do you know what this fulfilled prophecy was and when it happened? We'll answer these intriguing questions today on End of the Age. I want to go immediately to the scripture in Revelation chapter number 8, verse number 6. We're going to talk about the 7 trumpets today. And the 7 angels which had the 7 trumpets prepared themselves to sound. Now let's pause here. The book of Revelation is made up of 3 groups of 7. 7 seals, 7 trumpets, and 7 vials. They form the skeletal structure of the book of Revelation. The seals are located in Revelation chapter number 6 through chapter number 8. The trumpets are located in chapter 8 through chapter number 11. And then the vials are located in chapter number 16 all the way through the end of chapter number 16. Then there are other chapters that are inserted to flesh out the big picture of the book of Revelation. Nevertheless, these 3 groups of 7 form the backbone of the book of Revelation. We're talking about the second group right now, called the 7 trumpets. Many years ago, when studying these prophecies, the accepted understanding of the book of Revelation was that everything after chapter number 4 and verse number 1 was contained in a period of time, the final 7 years. The rapture of the church supposedly happened in verse 1 of chapter 4, and everything after that in the book of Revelation would happen after the rapture. Because of this theory, when I began studying the book of Revelation, I didn't pay as much attention as I needed to the trumpets, since no one seemed to understand them, and I concluded they would happen after we were gone. So how important was that to me? However, there came a time when I concluded that the theology stating that the rapture happened in chapter number 4, verse 1, was incorrect. As a matter of fact, how shocked was I when I got to Revelation 19 and the rapture hadn't happened yet, because in Revelation 19, around verse number 7, it says, "Come hither, I will show thee the bride, the Lamb's wife, for the marriage of the Lamb is come." I got there and I was stunned. The marriage of the Lamb has just now come in Revelation chapter 19. It made me reappraise everything. Well, in the process, over the years, I've made discovery after discovery, received enlightenment after enlightenment. But it seemed like even though I understood the 7 seals, it took a while for the 7 trumpets. Actually, I had already written our course called Understanding the End Time, which I hope you've been through by now. If you have not been through the Understanding the End Time course, put that number 1 on your bucket list. Matter of fact, put it on your emergency list. It's called Understanding the End Time. 14 DVDs which describe the prophecies of the Bible in layman's language so anybody can understand it. If you've not been through Understanding the End Time, I think it's mandatory for anybody living now, because we live in the end time right now. And if you don't want to be absolutely blindsided by the events that are coming, you should go through that course. If you can't do it any other way, request it for your Christmas present. Have the people call, or call yourself 1-800-END-TIME, 1-800-363-8463. It's 14 DVDs, Understanding End Time. Now, as I was writing the manual for the original Understanding End Time course, I was leaving out the trumpets because I didn't understand them. At first, the Understanding End Time series was 10 lessons instead of 14. So as I was writing the manual for that original 10 DVD series, I was sitting at my desk and I had heard a rumor. It began to circulate about 1986 when the Chernobyl nuclear accident occurred. And this rumor stated that the word wormwood was Russian for Chernobyl. Well, let me read the passage of scripture that caused people to believe this. In Revelation 8, verse 10 through 11, it says, "And the third angel, the third trumpet angel, sounded, and there fell a great star from heaven, burning as it were a lamp. And it fell upon the third part of the rivers, and upon the fountains of waters. And the name of the star is called Wormwood. And the third part of the waters became wormwood, and many men died of the waters because they were made bitter." Well, I heard this theory that the Russian word for wormwood was Chernobyl. But when you're in the prophecy world, you hear a lot of crazy things. I mean, there's people that I've got 75 different Antichrist stuck away in my filing cabinet. Different people write, "Oh, this man's got to be the Antichrist because of this, this, and this." And one of the craziest ones was Ronald Reagan had to be the Antichrist because his name was Ronald Wilson Reagan. And that means that all three of those names have 6 letters in them. And since the number of the name of the beast was 666, that means Ronald Wilson Reagan was the Antichrist. That's one of the crazy theories that I got. Of course, after a while, the Antichrist had Alzheimer's and then he passed away, so that ruled that one out. But anyway, as I was sitting at my desk and having heard this rumor that the Russian word for wormwood was Chernobyl, I just shrugged it off. And this, I'm ashamed to say, but now it's 1995. So for 9 years, I had sloughed this off, and nobody made much of it. Nobody put anything in writing or emphasized it. So consequently, I was just ignoring it. I'd frankly forgotten about it. But as I was sitting there writing on the manual for the Understanding End Time series, it's like the Lord spoke to me, and not audibly, but in my mind, and said, "You know that rumor you heard about Chernobyl being wormwood? I want you to check that out." Now, I was writing on this manual. I was going good. I was typing. Everything was flowing. And my door to my office was shut. And it almost got on my nerves because I thought, man, I'm doing so good. I don't need to be interrupted right now. However, since it was who I thought it might be, God, I thought I better obey. So I reached over in my drawer. I'll never forget, my right-hand drawer. I was in Richmond, Indiana at the time, and pulled out the phone book, called the local library, and asked to speak to the reference librarian. When she came on, I told her I was Pastor Irvin Baxter and that I had heard a rumor that the Russian word for wormwood was Chernobyl. Would it be possible for her to research that for me and tell me whether that was true or not? Now, she immediately said, "Oh, it is true." Because you see, the Russians took wormwood for medicinal purposes. It turned their tongues black, and the Russian word for black is Chernin. Consequently, they began to call wormwood Chernobyl. Well, she rattled all this information off, and frankly, I was stunned. I wasn't really prepared for that to happen off the top of her head. So I said to her, "Well, ma'am, I don't doubt your word. However, I'd like to write an article about this, and I'd like to have some documentation. Is there a chance you could get proof for this for me, all these things you've been telling me?" She said, "I'll call you back." She called back in about 20 minutes, and she had the books, the page numbers, everything. One of the things that she referred me to that day on the phone was it was a dictionary by S. Ozgov. It was a dictionary in the Russian language, and the word Chernobylnik, the definition is a variety of absinthe, wormwood, with a red, brown, or deep purple stem. And that's a dictionary of the Russian language. Well, I was stunned by that. And I thought, wow, what's going on? So after she gave me all this information, of course, I was very grateful. I said, well, listen, ma'am, I thank you very much. But before you go, I have to ask you one question. It's not normal that you would have known all this off the top of your head. How did you know? She said, well, I'm working on my doctorate in Russian right now, and I've been studying these things. Now, of all the people in the world that I could have called to ask this question, especially feeling like that God spoke to my heart to call, well, frankly, I was wowed. I was stunned by what she had told me. Well, I went and bought a book that she recommended, The Truth About Chernobyl, and I read the entire story. And I want to quickly tell it to you because just 2 days ago, there was a giant sarcophagus, a huge dome that was placed over the top of this. I'll tell you more about that later. But before we go there, let me tell you a little bit of the story of what happened at Chernobyl. It was April the 26th at 1:26 in the morning a.m. The scientist in charge of Chernobyl wanted to conduct an experiment. Consequently, he ordered some of the safety equipment disabled. He then ordered the bars that prohibit the nuclear reaction from happening inside the reactor. He ordered them raised so that the reaction would begin. Well, as he watched what was happening, he realized something was going wrong, so he quickly ordered the rod to be brought back down to stop the reaction. But too late. The intense heat that was being generated had bent the rods and they would not come back down. Consequently, 36 seconds later, there was this huge nuclear explosion, and it blew the 2 million pound concrete lid off of the reactor. It came down cocked. And then there was a secondary explosion that sent radioactive material 1 mile into the air. The atmosphere was then exposed to a full nuclear fire for the next 3 weeks. Now, in the meantime, the workers on duty that night at Chernobyl, one of them went dashing down to the site of the explosion. He opened the door and found himself staring full face into a nuclear fire. The intense heat was so powerful, he slammed the door shut. But by then the heat was filling the room, and as he was trained to do, he fell to the floor where the coolest air was. In the meantime, a friend of his partner, came into the room and he was hit by the blast of heat. He too fell to the floor. But because the lid was now off the nuclear reactor, the heat began to dissipate. They were able to get up and make their way down to the first aid station about 1 block away. Now, this was very critical because both of them now were critically wounded. By the time they got to the first aid station, they looked in the windows as they went along and they could see their own reflections. By now, their skin is hanging in ribbons from their arms. Both of them died within a matter of a few days. In the meantime, firefighters were called to fight the fire. Most of the fighters who came there to fight the fire had no idea they were signing their own death warrant by being there. They fought the fire for the next 3 weeks. They brought the fire engines, which quickly became contaminated with nuclear radiation. They then would bring bulldozers and bury the fire trucks. They brought more fire trucks. In the process, the bulldozers became so contaminated that humans could not be around them, so they would take new bulldozers and bury the old bulldozers. Well, in the meantime, the wind caught the nuclear cloud that had been generated and started carrying it north into Sweden, then into Germany, also into Italy, and across Europe. Now, that wasn't all the story. Somehow it began to rain incessantly. Whether it was created by the nuclear accident or whether it was just something that happened, it rained incessantly for the next 4 or 5 days. Now, this caused the nuclide cesium-137 to come down onto the earth, and it created huge brownouts. There's 100-mile circles where nothing will grow. And in the meantime, the water was filling the rivers of Europe with this nuclide cesium-137. And anybody that drank from those waters ingested the nuclide, which then goes to your bone marrow, and it has a half-life of 30 years. It'll lay there, eventually causing cancer. Now, the 30-year cycle, by the way, is now up because it happened in 1986, and here we are in 2016. Many of the scientists and the doctors in Europe expect massive amounts of cancer already. That has happened. The thyroid cancer rate in the Chernobyl area is 248 times the normal rate. Many people have died. It's estimated right now that 125,000 people have died as a result of the nuclear explosion. Now, I want to read once again the passage of the prophecy. This is Revelation 8:10. And the third angel sounded, and there fell a great star from heaven, burning as it were a lamp. And it fell upon the third part of the rivers and upon the fountains of waters. And the name of the star is called Wormwood. Now, if you were reading this in a Ukrainian Bible, it would say the star is called Chernobyl. And the third part of the waters became Chernobyl, and many men died of the waters because they were made bitter. Now, I was holding a prophecy conference. I was teaching on this, and people came to the conference that were from the Ukraine. They came up to me so excited after the service that evening. They had their Ukrainian Bible. They said, exactly what you said is true. Look at our Bible. This passage says that a star by the name of Chernobyl fell into the earth. And the result was that it contaminated the waters. The waters were made bitter, and many men died because of the waters. Now, this was a huge emergency throughout Europe. They killed 100,000 reindeer that were being raised for domestic consumption. They killed thousands and thousands of rabbits, anything that had eaten of the grass or the hay that had been touched by the rains that were generated by the nuclear explosion at Chernobyl. All of them had to be eliminated. They threw vegetables away, millions of dollars. It was an unprecedented disaster. Chernobyl released more nuclear radiation, 10 times as much as the bombing of Hiroshima in World War II. So it was a huge disaster. Now, as I considered all these things, I said, Lord, does this mean that the third trumpet sounded in 1986? And I was really incredulous because I had been pre-programmed by people who had an inaccurate understanding of the book of Revelation to say that none of this would happen until later. But all of a sudden, I couldn't deny what I had experienced, what I felt the Lord spoke to me to do, and then it all proved out. I was amazed, and I read the book, The Truth About Chernobyl. I mean, it was just an incredible compilation of proof that this was, in fact, the third trumpet. Now, I'm going to tell you one more trumpet just to give some credibility. I thought, well, if the third trumpet happened on April the 26th of 1986, that means the second trumpet and the first trumpet would have had to happen before that. So I went back and read the first trumpet, the second trumpet. I couldn't make any sense of it. However, under the second trumpet, it said that as a result of the second trumpet, when the second angel sounded his trumpet, that a third of the ships that were in the sea were destroyed, and that a great mountain burning with fire was cast into the sea. And I thought, I don't get it. What's that all about? And I thought, I don't think there's ever been a time when a third of the world's ships were destroyed. I must be off. So I waited almost a year. Then one day I was thinking about World War II and the fact that it was the greatest war ever in the history of mankind. 52 million people dead. And I thought, I wonder how many ships participated in World War II and how many of them were sunk. Well, I said to my research assistant, Kathy, I said, Kathy, go to the library, find out how many ships participated in World War II and how many of them were destroyed. So she went off to the library, came back a few days later. She walked into my office and laid on my desk the figures that she had compiled. And I looked at the total, 105,127 ships participated in World War II and 36,000 of them were sunk. I did a quick calculation. 1/3 of 105,000 is right at 36,000. And I said, Kathy, I didn't ask you to cook the books. I wanted the truth. She said, oh no, the librarian helped me. These are the real figures. Well, now I'm looking at the scripture. It says that this incident, 1/3 of the ships will be destroyed. And why shouldn't a war that kills 52 million people be in the prophecies of the book of Revelation? Then I thought, well, what's this great mountain burning with fire? I had seen a nuclear explosion, a picture of it, and it looked like a huge mountain that was on fire. And I thought, so this is describing the first nuclear bomb ever dropped on mankind, which also happened in World War II. And it was cast into the sea out on the islands of Japan. And I thought, oh my goodness. So the second trumpet sounded during World War II. The third trumpet sounded at Chernobyl. Now that brings us to what I want to talk to you about today. Now before I go there though, I have a very important announcement. Something special is happening here at End Time Headquarters tonight. You still have time to be a part of it. Tonight at 7 o'clock, we're going to begin showing our brand new series, From Here to Armageddon. Where are we right now in Bible prophecy? And what are the major prophetic fulfillments that this world will experience, that you and I will experience between now and the Battle of Armageddon? How close are we? I will be teaching the course. My son-in-law, Dave Robbins, will be the moderator. You're invited. There's no charge. The location is 2701 East President George Bush Highway. We're right on the George Bush Turnpike, just a mile east of 75. And you can come here, 2701 East President George Bush Highway. You'll come to the front of our building. You'll see the end time sign up on the top of the building. You'll come to the east entrance up front. And you're welcome to come. Come as you are, 7 o'clock. It'll last for about an hour and 15 minutes or so. And you'll have a wonderful time. There's a lot of other people that will be here. If you'd like to have more information, simply drop a quick email to drobbins@endtime.com. That's D, the letter D, ROBBINS, drobbins@endtime, ENDTIME.com. And you can attend. I really would encourage you, because this is the clearest thing we've ever put together to show you what's going to happen and the order in which it's going to happen. Now, before we run out of time, let me quickly go to our article now. The article is entitled, Giant Arch Slides Over Chernobyl Site to Block Radiation for the Next Century. This comes from Canada News, yahoo.com, just 2 days ago. Chernobyl, Ukraine. In the middle of a vast exclusion zone in northern Ukraine, the world's largest land-based moving structure ever has been slid over the Chernobyl nuclear disaster site to prevent deadly radiation spewing from the stricken reactor for the next 100 years. A concrete sarcophagus was hastily built over the site of the stricken reactor to contain the worst of the radiation, but a more permanent solution has been in the works since 2001. Easily visible from kilometers away, the 36,000 ton, that's 72 million pounds, new safe confinement arch has been slowly pulled over the site over the past 4 days to create a casement to block radiation and allow the remains of the reactor to be dismantled safely. On Tuesday, a ceremony was held at Chernobyl to mark this major milestone in the decades of work to secure the site that has been funded by donations amounting to over 2 billion euros from over 40 countries and organizations. The structure, which resembles a vast aircraft hangar, has been designed to withstand extreme temperatures, corrosion, and tornadoes. Even with the new arch, the surrounding zone, which at 2,600 square kilometers, that's 1,000 square miles, is roughly the size of Luxembourg and will remain largely uninhabitable and closed to unsanctioned visitors. Over 30 years on from the disaster, nature has reclaimed much of the area's abandoned infrastructure. Trees sprout from the rusted roofs of apartment blocks in the ghost town of Pripyat, where some animal populations are booming in the absence of humans. Well, that's the Chernobyl story. It happened 30 years ago, but day before yesterday, they're still fighting this, and they're not done yet. They're hoping this solution will hold for the next 100 years. After that, it'll be another thing. Now, if you'd like your own course, and by the way, this is now included in the Understanding the End Time course in much more detail. Understanding the End Time is what you need. It's a 14-lesson DVD series. Call us right now. The number to call, 1-800-END-TIME, 1-800-363-8463. And don't forget the class tonight, drobbins@endtime.com.
From Here to Armageddon, a new exciting 8-lesson series to share with your friends and family. Order yours right away.
Answering many questions like how far are we from the Battle of Armageddon? What will happen between now and then? Where are we on the timeline? Your questions answered in this exciting 8-lesson series, From Here to Armageddon.
Go to endtime.com or call 1-800-END-TIME. That's 1-800-END-TIME, 1-800-363-8463. Order yours right away.
Most people have dreamed of someday walking on the ground where Jesus walked over 2,000 years ago. You don't want to wait any longer. Make this the year for your life-changing experience. Judy and I would like to invite you to join us for our 2017 Spring End Time Prophecy Tour. This is a 14-day trip to Israel and Rome. Please join us to experience the greatest place on earth, the Promised Land, with an added bonus, Rome, Italy. Start making your plans right now and join us April 30th through May 13th of 2017. We're going to have a wonderful time.
Call now to reserve your place today at 1-800-END-TIME. That's 1-800-363-8463 or go to endtime.com.
If your station only carries the first 30 minutes of End of the Age, go to endtime.com and click the watch button to continue today's broadcast. You can also finish up later by clicking the archives button.
We will be taking your calls in this half of the program. The number to call to be on the air with me, 877-END-TIME. That's 877-363-8463. If you'd like to reach our operators, that number is 1-800-END-TIME. And I want to remind all of you once again about the From Here to Armageddon series that starts right here at our End Time headquarters this evening at 7 o'clock. All of you invited. There's no charge. If you'd like to come, you're welcome to come here at 7 o'clock The front entrance on the east side is the one that you will want to enter. And I understand there's quite a number of people that are going to be coming. You can be a part of that. You'll be with other people that are also interested in Bible prophecy, just like you are. It's a great experience. We've had hundreds of people go through these different courses, but this is the first time that this course has been offered. Whether you've been through our other courses or not, I certainly recommend that you go through our newest series, From Here to Armageddon. I know it'll be a great, great blessing to you. You're actually going to see a timeline so you can see so clear what's coming and exactly how everything's going to fall. There's a final 7-year period coming. And when that happens, we know exactly what's going to happen during the first 3.5 years, what's going to happen at the halfway point, what's going to happen during the last 3.5 years, and what's going to happen at the end of the final 7 years. All of it's going to be laid out as you go through this course From Here to Armageddon. You'll enjoy it very much. So I certainly recommend that you do that. If you need to talk to someone about it, the number to call is 1-800-END-TIME, 1-800-363-8463. Or if you just want to let Dave know that you're coming, the number to call, or the email is drobbins@endtime.com. We're taking your calls today. Now, while you have time to dial 1-877-END-TIME, let me take you to another article that's of tremendous importance. Now, in the first half of our program, we're talking about the prophecy about the Chernobyl nuclear accident. It is my opinion that the first 5 trumpets have now sounded. Those are all outlined for you in a DVD called The 7 Trumpets. The 7 Trumpets DVD is also a part of the 14-lesson series if you want to get the whole series. If you only want to get the 7 Trumpets, that DVD is available. You can order that by calling 1-800-END-TIME. In the middle of all of these things, there is one big focal point on earth. This has been the focal point of God's plan for 4,000 years. And that's the city of Jerusalem. Almighty God said repeatedly in the Old Testament, around 37 times, I will put my name in Jerusalem. It's where God caused Abraham to go to Mount Moriah to raise the knife over his son Isaac. He stopped him before he did it, of course. He just wanted to know that he was willing to. It's also the site of Israel's first temple, built in 968 BC, the site of the second temple built in finally completed in 516 BC, and it's also the site of the third temple, which will be built very soon. In the From Here to Armageddon series, you'll find out when the temple is actually going to be built. Yes, it will be built on the temple site. Now, here's the thing. Donald Trump promised that he would move the U.S. Embassy to Jerusalem when he became president. He becomes president in less than 60 days. I think we're about 50 days away now. So how quick will he move? Donald Trump is not known for moving slow. He's known for moving fast. He adamantly promised that he would move the U.S. Embassy to Jerusalem. Most of the nations, as a matter of fact, all the nations right now have their embassies in Tel Aviv because the UN does not recognize Israel's right to Jerusalem. Now, this is amazing. It's the only city like this in the world. Israel is the only nation whose chosen capital is not recognized by the UN. The only one out of 193 nations. Israel is the only state that the UN refuses to recognize its chosen capital. So all the nations of the world respecting the UN have put their embassies up in Tel Aviv, even though their diplomats have to drive all the way to Jerusalem, 45-minute trip, by the way, in order to deal with the officials of the Israeli government. Yet they do it because they're saying to Israel, no, you have no right to Jerusalem. But it's the place that God chose to put his name, and it's also the place that was the capital of Jerusalem for many years. From about 1000 BC until today, Jerusalem has been the recognized capital of the nation of Israel. But the world government says, oh no, we don't recognize that. However, in America, because we have a Bible-based society, we know that Jerusalem is supposed to be the capital of Israel. So our lawmakers got together in 1995, and because the presidents would not do it, our lawmakers passed a law that we had to move our embassy to Jerusalem and recognize Jerusalem as the eternal, undivided capital of Israel. The only reason not to do it is if the president made a judgment that it would endanger national security. In other words, would it trigger World War III? Well, every president from 1995 until today has gone to the Congress. They're required twice a year to request a waiver, June and November. And so every president, Bill Clinton, George Bush, and now then Barack Obama, has made their way to the Congress and asked for a waiver twice per year so that they don't have to move the U.S. Embassy to Jerusalem. However, now we have a president who loudly and vociferously stated that he would move our embassy to Jerusalem as soon as he became president. Well, his first time that he'll have to request a waiver if he does not do it is June. So he's going to be inaugurated on January the 20th, and he's got 5 months during which time he will need to bring the embassy, or at least to begin construction of the embassy in Jerusalem. Now, I'll tell you a little secret. There's already an embassy in Jerusalem. It's 100 feet into the ground. It's a military command center. They call it our consulate. It's only 2 stories above the ground, but it's 10 stories below the ground. And it's designed to be a military headquarters in case global war ever broke out in the nation of Israel. Okay, so I don't know whether they're going to use that embassy or another one. Now, the United States does own a piece of property on the road you take from Jerusalem to Bethlehem, and they own that property where they plan to build an embassy. It's a beautiful piece of property. So I don't know whether they'll build a brand new embassy there or whether they're going to use the consulate that's already constructed in Jerusalem. We'll have to wait and see. But the bigger question is, what approach will Donald Trump take to deliver on his promise? Will he say, look, I'm going to do it, but I want to do it within the context of a peace agreement? Donald Trump has said, I would love to negotiate a deal between the Palestinians and the Israelis. That would be the deal of all deals. And you know, he wrote the book, The Art of the Deal. In the last few days, it was announced that he and Vice President-elect Mike Pence, also Governor of Indiana, they have just negotiated a deal with Carrier Air Conditioners to keep Carrier in Indianapolis. So the legend of Trump's prowess as a negotiator is growing already. Will he be able to pull off the deal of all deals? Well, that's a question yet remaining. Now, if I were in his shoes and I thought I had a shot at the deal quickly, would I say, well, I don't want to offend the Palestinians and I don't want to offend the Israelis. I want to bring them together. Will I secretly say to them, look, let's go ahead and do the deal now. There's no reason for us not to do it, and let's do the deal. And then I will move the embassy to Jerusalem in the context of the agreed upon parameters. I don't know. Is there a deal coming? Yes. The Bible prophesies that there is a deal coming, and the deal will create a Palestinian state in the West Bank area called biblically Judea and Samaria. It will also place the Temple Mount under a sharing arrangement, giving the Jews access to part of the Temple Mount. They will build their temple there during the first 3.5 years of the conclusion of this peace agreement. They will build their temple there. So there's a deal coming. The Bible outlines what's going to happen. And also when that deal is signed, the final 7 years to the Battle of Armageddon will begin. Now think of where we are right now. We have a president coming to power in 50 days who says the greatest deal he could ever negotiate would be a peace agreement between Palestinians and Israelis. The Palestinian position is deteriorating. The settlements are growing. There are now 850,000 Jews living in the territory that was conquered by Israel during the 1967 war. They conquered it from Jordan, which had occupied it in the 1948 War of Independence. So Jordan attacked them, they counterattacked, and Israel has occupied the territory ever since. But there's huge international pressure on for Israel to pull back out and to create a Palestinian state here. Israel says she's willing to do it. Now let me be very clear. Israel should not do it. In the Bible, it teaches, when I bring you into the land that I have promised your father Abraham, you are to occupy the land. And you're not to conclude any treaties with the heathen who live there. And if you do, they will be thorns in your eyes and they will be thorns in your side if you allow them to live amongst you. Well, that's what's happened. Israel had an open door to take all of the land that made up their promised land after the 67 war. But they were afraid. Consequently, they didn't annex it. They did annex Jerusalem in 1980. The rest of the territory they have not yet annexed. There are many people in Israel who urge them to do it. They know biblically they should do it. But Israel fears man more than God. Consequently, they're still going this charade of, we're here, we've got to negotiate the boundaries. In the meantime, the settlements are growing. And many people are saying, we're going to get to the point where it's not possible anymore to have a two-state solution. Well, many people believe that's exactly what Benjamin Netanyahu wants to happen. He wants to create facts on the ground until it's just no longer possible, and there cannot be a two-state solution negotiated. Yet, President Obama wants this thing to be negotiated. He wants the two-state solution, and I'm sure he's talking to President-elect Trump saying, you got to get this done. You got to get it done now. It's going to be very interesting to see what's getting ready to happen. We have one segment left. We will be taking your calls in this segment. The number to call, 877-END-TIME.
If ever people need to hear the unvarnished truth, it is now. There are some subjects that are not politically correct to talk about, but they're urgent. That's why I'm grateful for End Time magazine. If you're not a subscriber, you're missing information that will really impact your life. End Time has a bi-monthly magazine that explains how current events are fulfilling Bible prophecy. You can get a 2-year subscription for only $29. You can also get a bulk subscription and pass them out to your church. We have gotten reports that End Time magazine has caused spiritual awakenings in churches when they see the prophecies being fulfilled right now. You can start your own ministry and leave them in doctors' offices, libraries, laundromats. You never know if you might be responsible for saving someone who is searching for the unvarnished truth. That's what the magazine did in my life. Call 1-800-363-8463. That's 1-800-END-TIME and get your subscription today.
It's always so interesting when we read the news this week and it fits right into the prophecies of the end time. It's always so astounding. I'm going to the phones now. First of all, we're going to Florida. Scott is calling from Florida. Hello, Scott.
They haven't put him on hold yet.
Okay, Scott's not on hold yet, so we'll pause just a moment. Again, the moving of the embassy to Jerusalem is a very interesting scenario. Now, Donald Trump has already negotiated this deal with Carrier. He's not even president yet. So how quick will he move to move the embassy to Jerusalem? What if he announces within 30 days? It's going to send shockwaves through everything. Now, many people are urging President Obama to allow a resolution to go through the UN Security Council, and the Palestinians, we talked about this yesterday, have already said they're going to submit a resolution to the Security Council declaring the settlements illegal. But the big question is, will Obama allow that to go through, or will he veto it? If he abstains and allows it to stand, President Obama has said he believes the settlements are illegal, and he said it repeatedly. But will he allow this kind of a resolution to go through? Only time will tell. All right, now let's go to Scott from Florida. Hello, Scott. What's on your mind?
Hello, Pastor Irvin.
Yes.
I just wanted to comment on what you were saying earlier about the Chernobyl disaster.
Yes.
And it having occurred on April 26, 1986. Sometimes when I hear dates like that, I like to look on the Jewish calendar to see what that coincided with. And in 1986, it happened to be the 17th of Nisan on the Jewish calendar. And I did a word search on that. And it says that the Bible records many miracles occurring on Nisan 17. No other day except Passover is mentioned as many times in the Bible. According to the Torah and traditional Jewish interpretation, other events that occurred on Nisan 17 include the following. And it goes through about 7 or 8 monumental events that took place on that same day. For instance, Noah's Ark safely resting on Mount Ararat. The Hebrews entered Egypt 130 years before deliverance. Moses led the Israelites through the parting of the Red Sea, on and on, until the last one is, in Nisan 17, was the resurrection of the Messiah. So I found it very interesting that that date coincided with so many other dates in biblical history.
Well, interesting information, Scott. Did you say that Nisan 17 was April the 25th or the 26th?
April the 26th, 1986 is the 17th of Nisan.
I see. Very interesting. Well, it was 1:26 in the morning on April the 26th that this happened. So I don't know if that has any significance, but I know for sure that Chernobyl has a lot of significance, plus these other things that you just now listed certainly all have tremendous significance. So very interesting. I thank you for the information.
You're welcome.
Okay, and let's go now to Bob calling from Pennsylvania. Hello, Bob.
Irvin, you there?
I am here.
Well, that's good to hear you. What you make me think about with your comments and stuff about Israel today is that we wrestle not with flesh and blood. And I can't hear you right now.
I think you should be able to hear me.
Yeah, I got you now.
Yeah, I wasn't talking. I was listening to you.
Okay. Well, the other thing that I wanted to comment on was, did you hear about the piece of Bible that they found in Dollywood while they were cleaning up from the fires down there?
You know, I did not hear about that. I did hear that one of the fires, the only thing left, I believe, was a statue of Jesus out of the whole house. I think I did read that today.
Yep, they found a page of the Bible that was burnt, and it's just a piece of the Bible they found while they were cleaning up, and it was the end of Joel chapter 1, the beginning of Joel chapter 2.
Well, very interesting. Of course, Joel is written about these end times in which we presently live, so that's interesting.
All right, sir. Well, Lord bless you. I just wanted to touch base with you.
Okay. Thank you very much,
yes, sir.
Bob. We appreciate the call from Pennsylvania. Let's go now to Indiana. Jamie's calling. Hello, Jamie.
Hello there.
What's on your mind, Jamie?
Hey, love your show.
Thank you.
You know, I don't know if you said anything about it, or maybe I just didn't hear you, but you know, just today you're talking about, you know, how great a negotiator and everything Trump is, and I do agree. But man, he'd be a good one to get this covenant signed between Israel and her enemies and bring peace.
Well, he claims he wants to do it. As a matter of fact, he has said that his son-in-law might be an excellent person to do that. I understand his son-in-law had a lot to do with the way he ran his political campaign, and now he's actually flirting with making him special envoy to Israel to work on a Middle East peace deal. Whether he actually does that or not, I don't know, but he has said repeatedly that he would like to go ahead and negotiate a peace deal. He wants to do it.
Well, could that make him the Antichrist then?
Well, I don't see how it could, because there are many other qualifications. The Bible, first of all, he hasn't done it yet. Plus, there will be many other people that have to participate in this. It takes two sides to negotiate, and it's going to obviously take three sides. You got to have the Palestinians, you got the Israelis, then you have other people involved. It's obvious that the international community will be involved, and that President Trump were involved. That would be another factor. So there's probably going to be several parties actually participate in this negotiation process, and we'll have to wait and see. We will not know for positive who the Antichrist is until he stands on the Temple Mount 3.5 years later, claiming to be Messiah and God. That's the best I can tell you about that. But
I just always thought that if someone would get that peace treaty, if somebody could be the one who orchestrates that peace treaty, that was one step towards being the Antichrist.
Well,
am I wrong?
That is a possibility. The prophecy about the treaty is Daniel chapter 9, verse 27. It says, he, speaking of the Antichrist, will confirm the covenant with many for a 7-year period. So whoever this personage is going to confirm the Abrahamic covenant, which is the covenant that God entered into with Abraham in Genesis 15:18. The land on which you dwell, Abraham, will be yours and your descendants after you forever. So this whole thing is about Israel's right to exist in the Middle East and the borders within which she will exist. So that's what's going to happen. The problem with Trump is two problems. Number one, the Antichrist will arise out of Europe. We can prove that theologically. And Trump is not from Europe. So I don't believe he can be the Antichrist. There are other qualifications for him as well. So even though he's wanting to negotiate this deal, we have no proof that he will get it done. And also, we don't know who all else will be involved in those negotiations.
Okay. Well, thank you.
Okay. Well, thank you very much, Jamie.
Blessings on you.
Thank you so much. We have incredible interesting stories breaking, a little bit more on moving this U.S. Embassy. The State Department's insistence on the diplomatic fiction that none of Jerusalem is part of Israel. This is what our State Department has contended. Our State Department has ruled that if you are born in Jerusalem, you cannot have Jerusalem, Israel on your passport, even if you were born in West Jerusalem. And the Obama administration fought that tooth and nail before the Supreme Court and won within the last 1 year. So the position our State Department has taken is that none of Jerusalem belongs to Israel at this time. What they like to say is that Israel, the status of Jerusalem has to be negotiated yet. Now, when Resolution 181 was originally passed by the United Nations on November the 29th of 1947, just 2 days ago. And how many years ago was it? How many years is that? 68, 69 years ago? When that was passed, they made Jerusalem an international city under UN control with a UN governor overseeing Jerusalem. Now, I tell you, the United Nations would love to control Jerusalem again, because it is the cradle of the three great monotheistic religions, Islam, Judaism, and Christianity. It's the cradle of those, and consequently, it's somewhat the center of the world. Matter of fact, Jerusalem is called the center of the world. Almighty God said He would put His name there. Satan said, you want your name there? Guess where I want my name? That's the reason the wars over Jerusalem have begun. So now that we have the U.S. State Department in its secular humanist position saying that the embassy should not be placed in Jerusalem. Now, Mr. Trump is going to inherit that State Department. The big question is, can he drain the swamp of the State Department along with the other bureaucracy? We're talking about 70,000 employees in the State Department. How do you weed out all of that old entrenched thinking and that humanism to change direction? It's going to take someone like Trump, the bulldozer, to get this whole thing done. Will he do it? I don't know. Will there be a peace agreement? I do know that. The answer is yes. There is going to be a peace agreement. And when it happens, the final 7 years to Armageddon will begin. Now, ladies and gentlemen, let me talk to you for a moment. All of you out there, we're going to enter this final 7 years. I cannot tell you how quick. Whether it's 1 year, 2 years, or 3 years, or 4 years. I can't tell you. It looks like the pressure's coming down for it to happen quickly. Now, when that happens, it's going to affect all of us. You, me, your family, your neighbors, your friends, the whole world. When the final 7 years begins. Now, it's going to be very critical for people who understand what's going on to be poised and ready, because it's going to be the greatest 7 years of revival the world has ever known. It's also going to be the greatest 7 years of persecution the world has ever known. Actually, the persecution will begin in earnest halfway through the 7 year period. That's going to make the first 3.5 years very critical for those of us who believe in revival. That will be the time that we can work. The Bible says work while it is day. The night comes when no man can work. So I'm asking all of you who listen regularly to this program, get your life ready. If you're in a position where you could retire and work full time during that final 7 years for the cause of Jesus Christ, arrange it. If you're already retired, then get yourself ready and make yourself available for this final 7 year plunge. It's going to be great revival. We're going to do our part to lead the way here at End Time Ministries. One of the first steps you can take today is to become a partner with End Time Ministries. Get on board right now. We're getting very close. The number to call to be a partner, 800 End Time.
End of the Age is a production of End Time Ministries. This broadcast will be available on our website, endtime.com, in the archives section. On our website, you'll also find more information about how current events are fulfilling Bible prophecy. To reach our operators, call 1-800-END-TIME. That's 1-800-363-8463. End Time Ministries is partner supported. We would like to say thank you to our partners who made this broadcast possible. To do what Matthew 24:14 said, to reach the world with the gospel of the kingdom.